have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Vibe Program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I'm hearing myself echo. Oh, I know why that is. That's because I've got my second YouTube channel, Trump Trial channel, playing in the background. But I just shut the volume there. So, whew, where to begin? Okay, a few places to begin. First and foremost, I don't have anyone to read with me. This is not good. See, I figured, foolishly perhaps, but I did figure that if I threw out a call out there into the ether saying, hey, anyone who's like halfway decent at doing a Trump invitation, love to have you on the show tonight. I'm going to throw it to you guys. Seriously, you could be some of my audience. If you think you have like a killer or at least decent, I'm going to go with decent. Doesn't have to be killer. Decent Trump imitation. Better than mine. Mine's not very good. It's not very good. It's terrible. I don't ever dust it off because it's terrible. It's terrible. If you sound any more like Trump than that, which is not a high bar, it's a very, very low bar. It's a bar, the bar's all the way down here. In fact, it's actually probably much lower than that. It's probably like way below my chair, the bar. That's where the bar is. Very low bar. Very, very, very low bar. If you can surpass that bar, I will be happy to kick out anybody to you. Seriously. Seriously. No, really. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It's a very low bar. The other thing I wanted to mention is I am streaming right now to Rumble and to YouTube on Good Logic, and I'm streaming over to Trump Trial, my debut video on Trump Trial. Not going to kid you. I'm not hiding the ball here or misleading anyone. I really, I really need to rack up 4,000 hours, viewed hours, in order to be eligible for monetization on that channel. At a certain point here, I'm probably after midnight. I expect to run long tonight. Probably going to run long. And at a certain point, I'm probably going to take my Good Logic channel and cut that. And I'll continue streaming on both Rumble and on the Trump Trial channel, just to encourage those of you who are on YouTube to swing on over there. Swing on over there. I will give you a heads up beforehand. It's not going to be like all of a sudden everything's going to drop dead on you. That's not going to happen. So that's where we're at. When I saw, how did I come to this transcript? You might be wondering, Joe, where'd you come up with this transcript that you're going to be reading to us and going through with us? Well, I was looking through the motion that Trump brought for mistrial. And what I realized is I'm admitted in New York. I can just go through any public file and pull up their records. And when I pulled up the records, one of the exhibits that was attached to the motion was the transcript for the whole freaking trial. And I'm like, oh my God. I have the transcript from Trump's day in court, along with the rest of the stuff that had happened as of the date when they filed the mistrial motion. So started parsing through that, and I was like, oh yeah, this is something the world needs to hear. They need to, because everyone was like reporting on it. I was reporting on it, Inner City Press, Adam Klasfeld, all of us were trying to capture what was happening in court that day. But now you can actually see the words. It's not the same thing as being there. Trust me, it's really not, because you don't get tone and context and all that other stuff. But this is the best rendition that 98% of you are ever gonna see. So I felt like that's something that I'm offering the world, which few people have been offering. Maybe a couple have, but few have been offering. Drop Barry Cruz says Trump impressions. I highly recommend Trump speed dating Gillian Keeves sometime. It doesn't have to be very good. It doesn't have to be very good. It doesn't. It just higher than that very low bar that I have. That very low bar that I set. Very low. Whew. All right. So Oh, and also I missed this. Chugi Show says, why not do this on Trump's trial channel? It is. Good way to get monetized in time for the actual trials. It is there. It is there. In fact, I actually have in there right now 59 people watching there. And when I shut this thing down here, when I shut it down on, I expect that it's probably going to shoot into the several hundred people watching at once. So should have asked Nick. He does a Trump voice. I thought about asking him. It was because, you know, I haven't had him on here a long time. And I've appeared on his channel a couple times since then. I very strongly considered, I was like, it's short notice. I don't want to just throw that at him. Strange, I'm sure I had to resub like 2 days ago, or was it last week? Yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. I appreciate your support, though. I do appreciate your support. Let's get into this thing. I'm also, after I'm done going through this, which is 170 pages, so I sort of going to read like a little quick, okay? It's 170 pages. At the end of it is where you have that whole incident where they're screaming at each other about, and they're saying, we need to follow this motion, and the whole back and forth. So you'll actually see word for word, although I did notice one infamous quote that is not in this transcript and should be there. It should be there, and it's not. But we'll come to that. We will come to that. No, I need a reader. I need a reader. That's what I need a reader, because I'm really going to start reading a transcript right now. All right, here we go. This was on November 2nd. November 2nd, November 4th. What day was this? This was on. Let me pull it up for you. Present. Share screen. Entire screen. Where do I am? Share. Okay, we'll make this a little bigger. It says November 15th on top. That's not the date. That's the date that the motion was filed. The date that this transcript happened was November 6th. So it was 2 weeks ago today. I thought it was 2 weeks ago today. November 6th. All right. First it was blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that. Court said, I want to start right away with the next witness. Are there any housekeeping matters? Not that can't wait, Judge. Minor housekeeping matter, but if Your Honor would like to proceed, we'll just wait until later. Great, thanks. Plaintiff, would you like to? That's more appropriate voice for angry. Plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness? Certainly, Your Honor. The people call Donald J. Trump. And that's how it all started. Oh my God. What is that? Audie Joe saying, I'm celebrating. I've been fostering my niece. Today she got to go back home. It wasn't easy. Well, God bless you. I'm gonna give you another one of these. God bless you. I have great respect for people who adopt, take in foster kids and things of that nature. I mean, that's such a level of self-sacrifice to try and better the life of another human. Mad props for you. Really, really, really. I mean, that's not an easy thing to undertake. And getting her to go back home, I wish nothing but blessing for her. I mean, I understand that she's a relative, she's a niece, but I'm glad that situation is more stabilized now. Great job. Great. I'm giving you one more. Don't stop me. Check your DMs, you boomer. Check my DMs. When am I supposed to check my DMs? Yeah, I'll send you an invite. I'll send you an invite, Joe. Joey, I'll bring you in. I'll bring you in. You can be my huckleberry. It's probably easier. It's probably better if I have two people here anyway. I think my Enugan's not bad. I sent you that invite. All right. So I'm gonna bring Joe in here because I think with two people here, it's gonna be better. It has to be better, right? And I trust Joe. Joe's good. Joe is good. All right. Meanwhile, the court says, great, thanks. Plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness? That's really kind of how he talks. Certainly, Your Honor, the people called Donald J. Trump. Whereupon the witness took the stand. Court officer, please raise your right hand. Donald J. Trump, after having first been duly sworn, was examined, testified as follows. Here we go. Please state your name and either home or business address for the record. That's what they always do. Pick your name. Give us your name. Pick your business address or your home address. Yes, it's Donald J. Trump, and I live in Palm Beach, Florida, 1200 Southern Boulevard. That sounds good. Okay. That sounds good. Hey, Ralphie boy. That sounds good. I'll just ask, like I ask every witness, talk right into the microphone loudly, slowly, clearly. Mr. Wallace, please proceed. Now, that is something I'm sure he says to everyone. I'm sure he relished saying it to Trump, but he knew that people are going to like try and pick on it. So like that's why he decided to say, hey, this is what I tell everybody. So don't think I'm picking on you. This is just what I say. It's what I say. Did you got my DM? Okay. You're there. Morning, Mr. Trump. Good morning. Good morning. You were the beneficial owner of a bunch of companies branded as the Trump Organization. Is that correct? Yes. From May 1st, 1981 to January 19, 2017, you were the director, president, and chairman of the Trump Organization Incorporated. Is that correct? Yes. And the assets of the Trump Organization are currently held in a revocable trust. Is that correct? Yes. And that trust is called the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust. Is that right? Yes, that's right. If we talk about the trust today, you will understand that's what I'm referring to. Now, this is a common thing that lawyers do. They sort of want to have something defined and go on the record saying, this is what we're going to call it. So, I mean, I'm not going to repeat the whole name every time because it's just too much of a mouthful and makes things more confusing. But when I say the trust, that's what I mean. Yes, certainly. You are the donor of all of the assets in the trust. Yes. Are you the sole beneficiary of the trust? Yes. And you formed the trust when you decided to run for president. Is that correct? Pretty much when I won, I formed the trust. Do you recall that the trust may have been formed actually in 2014? It could have been earlier, but it was primarily when I thought about running, and I think maybe came into, it could be a little earlier, but pretty much around that time, around the time that I won. And the purpose was related to your run for the presidency. Is that correct? I thought there would be a conflict of interest if I had the properties outright, so I formed the trust. But no, excuse me, even though I would be allowed to do that. In fact, I told you the story once about George Washington. He had two desks, one for business and one for president. You're allowed to do that, but I didn't like it. And I thought there may be a conflict of interest, so I formed the trust. You. Let's do it this way. Well, is that going to work? No, it's not going to work. Let's do it this way. This is Joey Boy. I'll do it this way. No, that's too small. That's way too small. We're going to do it this way.
It's got to be very large.
That's not bad.
Bigly. Look, everyone. If you ask around, you'll find that everyone seems to agree. It's bigly. It's obvious. It's bigly. It's been bigly ever since I've been. It's been
that, and no doubt indeed.
I do need to set something up before just 1 second. Technical moment.
Yeah, do what you got to do.
Yeah, all right, we're ready.
All right. Should we do it? Should we do it like this? Should we do it like this? You can be able to see.
Oh Jesus, I'm in trouble.
You can be able to see?
I can see. I mean, Jesus Christ. I'm doing this for fun, for the fans, because I'm a fan, and
he's like one of my first fans I ever had here.
I'm cult follower number 6.
There you go. Who is number?
You're the one who's got the records in the great vault on high.
But you really could be like cult follower number 6. He's been here like since the days of 30 people in here.
Yeah, it was fun stuff back,
when I was desperately trying to reach my minimums for monetization. And he was one of the folks who were helping me out. All right, let's get into this because we got a long way to go here. We got like another 150 pages.
So is A for Trump here? Is he? I'm sorry, I just jumping in. He's answering.
He's answering. Yeah. All right. You ready? Let's do this.
We'll find out.
But prior to you becoming president of the United States, you were the sole trustee of the trust. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And after you were elected president of the United States, you appointed your son, Donald Trump Jr., and Alan Weisselberg as trustees. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
We can do a little faster, okay? I know you're doing your best, Trump, and I definitely appreciate it. But
please continue.
Okay. So why did you select Mr. Weisselberg to be a trustee?
Well, he had been with the company a long time, and he was somebody that I had confidence in. He did a good job. I mean, he was very good at what he did. He was a comptroller and a financial person, and we really liked him a long time.
And you trusted Mr.
I did, yes.
At the time you appointed him as trustee, he was the chief financial officer of the Trump organization.
Yes, that's right.
Why did you select your son Don to serve as a trustee?
He's a hardworking boy. You know, a young man, and he has done a very, very good job. As Eric is a very busy man, running the company, and I thought that putting Don in would be good. He is smart. He's an honorable guy.
I'm trying to figure out how to close out my tab. Do you know how to close out this thing so I don't show the thumbnails?
Oh, geez, Bruce. Now I'm going to do Trump and tech support.
Yeah, basically.
I'm going to have to. You're going to start sending me super chats. I don't know, bro.
He's saying remove the side thumbnails and push with full. Like that's like, oh, obviously. Hello.
Well, it's on the obvious. There's an NE key here somewhere. There it is.
I don't know what that means. Fit to page. No, God, that's better. All right, whatever. And when you left the White House, you appointed yourself as trustee again. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And at that time, after you left the presidency, you were the sole trustee of the trust. Is that correct?
Yeah, around that time, yes.
Why did you make yourself the sole trustee?
Well, I figured that I would scroll the fucking page in front of my friend. You're killing me, Smalls. Well, I figured that I would be back in the business world for a little while, depending on what happened in politics. And I was going to get involved in the business again. It wasn't in politics. Other than that, thinking around running or doing whatever I had to do. So I figured that I would be back in business. I might as well be the trustee.
I'm going to hand up to the court officer a document that's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1720. If you could put a copy of that up on the screen, please. If we could skip to page 2 of this document. This is a document entitled The Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust Removal of Trustee. And if we look down at the bottom of the page, it says, now therefore, pursuant to sub-article A of Article 13 of the Agreement of Trust Settlor, hereby removes Donald J. Trump as trustee under the Agreement of Trust effective as of 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 7, 2021. If we look on the next page, you'll see, is that your signature?
Yes.
Why did you remove yourself as trustee as of July 7, 2021?
I don't know that. I think we were in a position where I was gaining more confidence in my family in terms of the business. And let's try this again in English, right? And you would have to see that what the alternative is. Who were the trustees? Who's appointed? Because I had many different. Really? What are the trustees that are appointed? Because I had many different. That can't be the freaking transcript, dude.
That sounds like Trump, actually.
Jesus Christ.
Who were the trustees who were appointed? Because I had many different. Sure.
No. Grammar.
Sure. Yeah. I'm happy to show you page 5 of this document, which is entitled Appointment and Acceptance of Trustee. It states at the bottom, now therefore, pursuant to subarticle A of Article 13, the argument of agreement of trust, settler hereby appoints Donald J. Trump Jr. as trustee under the agreement of trust. And Donald J. Trump Jr. hereby accepts such appointment effective as of 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 7, 2021.
Yeah,
So that's your son, Don Jr.?
that's right. He was impressive in business. He was,
As
as was Eric. And I thought that I would do that while I continue onward with politics.
Okay, anything in particular was happening in July of 2021 that led to that decision?
Well, other than you and about every other Democrat district attorney, AG, and U.S. attorneys, etc., were coming after me from 15 different sides, all Democrats, all Trump haters, and all cases that are not good, that are inappropriate and not good. Weaponization, they call it. But I felt Donald would do a good job. He would be running the business with Eric, and I had a great confidence in him.
It's such a Trump answer, isn't it?
It is. It's like
I told you guys he was like the Trumpiest Trump imaginable on the stand. This transcript is bearing that out.
No, just to be clear, I was not the Trumpiest Trump.
No, not
Donald.
you. No,
I'm just
you're
having
just
fun with my friend
marginally better
Joe.
than me. You're just
Yeah,
marginally better than me. Yeah,
more Heineken.
and braver. So I'm just trying to understand: was the decision to appoint Don actually related to the investigations you referred to?
I think more so to the fact that I was staying very much in politics. You know, obviously, as you see it, I have been in politics pretty much more than I thought, perhaps. Wow,
Okay,
that's
Mr. Trump.
What the hell? 170 pages of this?
Feel your Trump. Feel your Trump, and
Oh,
it will
Jesus.
sound logical to you. It will sound logical to you. Just feel the Trump. You can't just talk like Trump. You have to be Trump.
Yeesh.
Okay,
my
Mr. Trump.
parents are from the Bronx, not from Queens.
Okay, Mr. Trump, I'm going to put a document up on the screen. I don't think we need to have a hard copy of it. This is a document that's rated evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 787. This is a copy of your 2011 Statement of Financial Condition. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it correct that you had a Statement of Financial Condition prepared as of June 30th for every year from 2011 until you became president in 2017?
I think so. Yes, Mr. Wallace, Your Honor.
No, that's me. That's me.
Oh, that's you?
Yeah, that's
All
the
right,
questioner is Mr. Wallace, but now I'm not asking a question to you. I'm talking to the court.
Okay.
Yeah, on a housekeeping, I failed to move into evidence document 1720, which was the trust document we just looked at. Granted, it's in evidence. Thank you, Your Honor. If we could go back to the Statement of Financial Condition, is it correct that you had reviewed the Statement of Financial Condition in each of those years from 2011 to 2017 before it became final?
Yeah, I will look at them. It was not something that was of great urgency because I knew they weren't very badly needed, and it was the true sense, but I would look at them. I would see them, and maybe on occasion have some suggestions.
When you say they weren't badly needed, what do you mean?
Banks didn't find them very relevant, and they had a clause in it, a disclaimer clause. You call it a worthiness statement clause because
worthless statement.
A worthless statement clause because they were done in such a way that they really were. You talked about it here recently, a compilation. There was something that you would have
just something that you would have for yourself.
Yeah, there you go. But if you were borrowing money, and as I guess people are starting to say, I was very leveraged.
Probably was leveraged.
A way to start off with.
Anyway, we didn't even start with it.
Oh, yeah. But there were not really documents that banks paid much attention to. They looked at the deal. They looked at the asset. If it is real estate, they looked. Scroll. This is crazy, dude, when somebody else is scrolling.
Yeah.
It's all good.
They looked at the location.
They looked at. These were not very important. Preliminary for the reasons that you had a disclaimer clause that was very, very powerful.
And that's really key to him, is that he keeps saying there's a disclaimer clause which says don't rely on these documents. So how may be held that I committed fraud and tricked them with these documents when there's a word? It's not really a disclaimer clause. It's actually called a worthless statement clause, which basically says everything in here is essentially worthless. So and should not be relied on. Audie Joe, break his fingers, huh? Forget about it, Joey.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Where was I? Yeah. So, how did you know that the banks did not pay much attention to your statements?
Because, okay, I'm sorry, my screen just blocked it a little bit. Because I've been dealing with the banks for 50 years, and I probably know as well as anybody. And I have borrowed a lot of money. I have paid back a lot of money, and I know what they look at. They look at the deal. They look at the location. They don't want to get involved in the financial statements because that's not what they're after. If a deal goes bad, they want to be able to take that deal back over and, have it. They want you to be able to put up some cash or whatever it is you may be, including expertise, but they do not want to be fighting for 10 years over personal financial statement. They want to take over the deal.
So you understood that these statements would go to the banks, but it is your view, based on your experience, that they didn't rely on them very much?
They may have to go to the banks. Some wanted them. They didn't. They just wanted a very important element in the bank's decision-making process. And we'll explain.
We'll explain that as the trial.
Yeah, as this trial goes along, this crazy trial goes along, because we are bringing some of the best, some bankers. I'm freaking putting Trump in it. This is nuts. And the bankers will tell you, very big bankers, I want to say the best bankers, bankers that dealt with me, and they will explain exactly what their processes were. But these were very substantial bankers, and they'll explain what the process is. But they paid very little attention to the documents, unless they were certified documents, unless they were at the highest level. Everything was checked. Everything was, but even then, they were even more interested in the deal.
Mr. Trump, Mr. Wallace is being very patient, but I would like to move things along a little faster. Please, just answer the questions, no speeches. Mr. Wallace is going to ask questions. You're going to answer them. I'm going to make sure that happens. And some of your answers have not been responsive to the question. They responded, but then there's a speech to be had after that. Mr. Kais? So Mr. Kais is Trump's attorney. So he's like, Your Honor, respectfully, I've been watching that. All of Mr. Wallace's questions have called for narratives, not badly needed. What do you mean? That's an open-ended question. How did you know the banks didn't rely? That's an open-ended question. Which is true. He could have asked some closed questions saying, you don't know for sure that they didn't rely on them, yes or no. But he didn't do that. He said, what made you think that? So he goes on a long thing. So you understood. I mean, if Mr. Wallace is going to ask open-ended questions that call for narratives that I haven't objected to, ordinarily, I like to object to Mr. Wallace's questions, but they're narratives. So if they call for narratives, I think it's fair for the witness to narrate. He'll certainly understand your instruction, but they're open-ended questions he's asking. He's not asking narrow questions like, what do you mean by, this? What is your understanding of that? Those are questions that call for narratives, respectfully. Well, we agreed on the principles. We disagree on the applications. Let's just continue. Thank you, Anna. Why don't we go through one of the later statements in a little more detail? If we can get Plaintiff's Exhibit 730, please. This is an evidence, Your Honor, so providing an extra copy for the witness. Which, by the way, that whole back and forth there, that's a very common type of thing when you have a judge who hates the guy. He's like, because normally it's not the judge's role to start playing in there as to how they're answering. It should be on the prosecutor or the plaintiffs or the person who's asking the questions of a hostile witness to say, Your Honor, I didn't ask for him to read me the Declaration of Independence. I asked him a simple question. He's not answering. But the judge here is doing this on his own because the judge is interested in doing this on his own. Mr. Trump, I have handed you a copy of a document that is in evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 730. Do you recognize this as a copy of your 2014 Statement of Financial Condition?
Yes, I do.
If we can turn to page 2 of the document, we'll put it up on the screen. Second paragraph states Donald J. Trump is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statement in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and for designing, implementing, and maintaining internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statement. Is that statement true and accurate?
True in the sense that what they wanted was this was Mazar. Is it Mazars or Mazars?
Mazers.
Mazars?
I
Okay.
think so.
This is Mazars. What they wanted was much information as we could give them so that they could do their statements. And if you look at every other paragraph, that's what they talk about.
I'm not mouthing like I'm rooting for him to read it right.
Well, I'm rooting for me to read it right too. God damn it. I'm just trying to have fun with my friend Joe in front of about 500 of our friendly strangers. And I'm follower number 6.
That was really funny. Was the So is it true that you were responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements?
Getting them information, yes, in a form of getting them information.
Okay.
What the Jesus, bro? Really?
See, what happens is sometimes you don't realize, because when you're reading a transcript, I wasn't there for this part of it, but it's very likely that what happened was he goes, getting them information, yes. In a form of getting them information. Like it's like sort of like there's like a long pause there, and it's like nothing's happening. So he just is still rambling, you know what I'm saying? And it's repetitive. That's a common thing that you'll see in transcripts if you read enough of them. And you understand that the person feels like he's in a conversation and not preparing something to be read on a transcript. You know what I'm saying? But the court reporter is just taking down every word. So that's what
happens. Yeah. That makes sense.
I learned this lesson when I was I was being taught how to handle depositions. First job I ever had, I was doing a deposition 3 days after I got admitted to practice law. And one of the things that James Gear, the attorney who taught me this, said was, always remember that a transcript is just a bunch of words on a paper, and there's no tone. Context gets lost, everything gets lost. So I remember he's telling me, he's like, I remember I was in this worst pissing match with another attorney, and we're jawing at each other back and forth, and all of a sudden she goes, so when she was asking these ridiculous questions, and I said, this whole thing would have ended a lot. The whole thing would have ended an hour ago if you weren't a completely incompetent attorney. And she goes, excuse me? He goes, and right away in my brain, it clicked to me that just reads on a transcript as, excuse me. So I said, that's okay. I accept your apology. And that's how it reads on the transcript, even though like she was like not saying excuse me. So if your brain is playing along as you're hearing words, you understand how something will read in a transcript. But if you're just a witness on the stand, that's not how you're thinking. You're just rambling, and court reporter is getting it down. So he said, getting the information, yes, informs getting them information. Okay,
yeah.
Go on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And if they have
they had a problem with it, they would have done the statement.
They wouldn't have done the statement.
They wouldn't have done the statement. In other words, if they didn't get what they wanted in that paragraph, they would call. Can you get this? Can you get that? And they wouldn't do the statement.
So who's responsible? Well, we'll strike that. Can you tell me, what did you do to meet your responsibility for the preparation and fair presentation of this financial statement in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States?
Me personally, or?
Let's start with you personally.
Okay. Well, first of all, is so long ago, this is well beyond the statute of limitations. I think anybody else would be well beyond the statute of limitations, but I am probably not, because I'm sure the judge will rule against me, because he always rules against me. But this is something well beyond the statute of limitations. But I will tell you, my primary thing was to tell people to give them anything they needed.
Mr. Kais, was that comment necessary and part of the narrative to answer the question? Well, Your Honor, he is asking broad questions about him personally. I think what he's trying to understand is the witness's perspective. I mean, this is an unusual situation in an unusual trial. I think the court should grant the former president of the United States and according to the New York Times this morning, perhaps soon to be the future president of the United States, a little latitude to explain himself. It is a bench trial. There is no jury. If it's his view, it's his view. Your Honor is in charge of the courtroom. You have our view. You can instruct him as you see fit. But again, Mr. Wallace is trying to get at what is this witness's understanding and what he did. Now, by the way, just to pause here, the reason he mentions a bench trial is this is something that he's throwing back in the judge's face, something the judge has said repeatedly, which the judge has said repeatedly. A lot of times when evidence is supposed to come in or they're objecting to it, it's like, there's no reason for this evidence to come in here. It's prejudicial. It's harmful. He's like, nah, this is a bench trial. There's no jury here to be tainted. I understand the magnitude of weight to afford it, so I'm going to allow it. So now he's sort of throwing that. So Kais is correctly and wisely throwing this back in the court's face, saying, you're worried that he's going off in the mouth and that's going to just harm things here? How's it going to harm anything? It's a bench trial. You can know what to tune out, what not to tune out. So why are you worrying about it? It's a brilliant comment that really is far more powerful if you've had the benefit of sitting in a courtroom, which unfortunately Judge Engoran doesn't want to allow anyone to do. You can instruct him as you see fit, but again, Mr. Wallace is trying to get at what is this witness's understanding of what he did. The only way he can present that is to explain his position. I think it's fair for the court to hear his position, whatever it may be, whether it agrees or not. I certainly think it is fair for the American people to hear his position, but we're subject to your honor's instruction. That's a way of finally at the end, like, obviously it's all yours. I just happen to think you're a D-bag. but I'm not saying those words, but he basically explaining in polite language why it is that everything you're saying here makes no sense. I think it was a yes or no question. Was he responsible? Is the question to me, or the comment that I always rule against him, which, as you know, is not true anyway. It certainly didn't answer the question. So, Mr. Trump, just answer the question. You can attack me. You can do whatever you want, but answer the questions. Could we get a read back, please, Your Honor? Read back, please. Whereupon they read the court back. The question is, yes, what did you personally do to fulfill your responsibilities for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements?
All I did was authorize and tell people to give whatever is necessary for the accountants to do the statement. In other words, we supplied them with what they needed. And if they didn't get it, they wouldn't do the statement.
What people did you authorize?
Really, anybody, sometimes they would call a building or they would call a project, or maybe perhaps I think one or two times maybe they wanted to go see a project. They would go out to Westchester and see something that I did out there in Briarcliff Manor, or do things. I authorized whatever they needed to get the statement done they could do.
When you say that they would go to see a project, are you talking about the firm Mazars?
Excuse me.
You said that sometimes they would want to go see a project. You mentioned Westchester. Is the they that you're referring to Mazars?
Yes.
Who internally at the Trump organization would you provide the direction to give Mazars whatever they wanted?
Almost anybody. If somebody would ask, for instance, if they would call somebody within the organization in purchasing or whatever, I would give them. But I would do it principally. I'm sorry. It's the grammar is killing me. Right? Because I would do it with, but I would do it principally with Alan Weissenberg or Jeff McConaughey.
I think there should be a period. McConaughey.
Yeah.
I think this was a period after it.
Yeah, all hail the court reporters. God, this has got to be awful work.
Yeah. Any other instructions besides, let me withdraw that question. Would you provide Mr. Weisselberg and Mr. McConaughey with any instructions for how the statements should be prepared?
Not really. No, I just prepared them to I just wanted them to get the information to the accountants so they could do the statement.
If we could turn to page 6 of this document, this is the top. It states, basis of presentation, and says, quote, the accompanying statement of financial condition consists of the assets and liabilities of Donald J. Trump. Assets are stated at their estimated current values and liabilities at their estimated current amounts using various valuation methods. Such valuation methods include, but are not limited to, the use of appraisals, capitalization, or anticipated earnings, recent sales and offers, and estimates of current values as determined by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and in some instances outside professionals. Let me ask first, Mr. Trump, is it correct that you were responsible for determining the value stated in this financial statement?
If somebody would ask me an opinion, I would give it to them. If Mazers would ask me an opinion, which they rarely did, I mean, if you were talking about many years ago, you were talking about over years, but I would certainly, I think I'm probably more an expert than anyone else. I think I, have shown that I know more than about real estate than other people. If somebody would ask me or if I would have an opinion, I would give it.
In light of your expertise in real estate, do you recall ever thinking that the values were off on your statements of financial condition?
Yeah, on occasion.
What were some of those occasions?
Both high and low. Both high and low.
What occasions do you recall?
Sorry, I had a cough there.
No, that's all right.
Anyway, where am I? Leave the gun.
Dear Coach Joe, you're not MGM. It's the Don's English. It is the Don.
Yeah,
it's not the Queen's English. It's the Don's English.
I read a thing about Christopher Walken is also from Queens.
Christopher Walken
with that rhythm of, and he attributed his rhythm of speech to the excuse the term, the multicultural nature of Queens.
Yeah, there's nobody,
all kinds of broken English.
People in Queens do not talk like Christopher Walken.
Right, but people in Queens don't talk like anybody from anywhere else, so it sort of makes sense.
Is that really true?
Are you
hating on my? Are you hating on my native homeland?
No. Well, hey, first of all, my mother's born in Queens,
right.
And my wife's Filipina, and there's a big Filipino community in Queens, so I got nothing but love for Queens.
There you go.
There it is.
All right. So
and that's where.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I thought Mar-a-Lago was
he's being asked which times, and those of you who joined late, at this point, Trump is about to answer a question as to which times he thought the valuations that he had presented to a bank were, he later thought they were incorrect.
I thought that Mar-a-Lago, right. Let's try that in English. I thought that Mar-a-Lago was very underestimated, but I didn't do anything about it. I just let it be. It didn't matter. I didn't care because numbers you were talking about here, they're very big numbers, very, very big, far bigger. The values are far bigger than what is on the financial statement. I thought Mar-a-Lago was underestimated. I thought 40 Wall Street was very underestimated because the building has tremendous value. I thought that there were numerous other things. I thought Doral was very underestimated. I thought it was considerably more valuable, not necessarily as golf courses, but it is right in the middle of Miami, right next to the airport. I would say that you could build thousands of units and hotels on the site. So you don't look at it as a golf course. It's a great golf course. Very successful.
Very successful.
4 of them. 1 was sold. It was 5. 1 was sold. That was a little disconnected, and I sold it. And then Trump continues. But I thought Doral was very underestimated. And you yourself had Mar-a-Lago. No, that's not me. That's that. And you yourself had Mar-a-Lago at 28 million. That's not me. That's got to be the other attorney, right?
No, it's still him.
Oh, the judge had it at 18 million. And it's worth, I say, from 50 to 100 times more than that. So I don't know how you got those numbers, but the judge ruled against me based on the fact, I guess, that he thought that it was worth 18 million, which is absolutely crazy.
The question was examples of when properties were undervalued or overvalued, not why you think so. Oh, stop it. That's so stupidly ticky-tacky. He wouldn't do that to anyone else. It's ridiculous. I may ask about those as you go on, which, by the way, I just want to point out one other thing. A reason that that's inappropriate for a judge to be interjecting here and cutting him off is because sometimes the questioner may want him to ramble at the mouth. It could be beneficial to the questioner for the witness to just ramble on and on and on and on. It is grossly inappropriate for the judge to start chastising the witness as to talking too much without a request coming from the party who called him up to the stand saying, Judge, he's not answering my question, can we, and asking the court to step in. But in theory here, the judge could be stepping all over the AG who wants Trump to ramble on and open up more opportunities for other things for him to question him about. So it is so inappropriate and would not happen but for the fact that it's Donald Trump on the stand here. I may ask about those as you go on. Your counsel are free to either cross-examine you or call you as a witness, and you can tell the full story as you see fit, but it will go faster if...
That's fine.
You mentioned Mar-a-Lago, 40 Wall, and Doral.
Oh, and others. But I think that I can think of, I'm sorry, one that was, I thought, overvalued, and we can change it.
And we changed it.
Yeah, that's right. I thought Joe would scroll. The apartment was overvalued when I looked at it, but I didn't spend a lot of time looking at this. But when I heard about the apartment and the valuation, I thought it was overvalued. But you never know, because people come along and they will give you an apartment was sold fairly recently in New York for $250 million. I like this much better. So I don't know what overvalued means. Someone comes along, it only takes one very rich person to buy it. But I thought the apartment was high, but I thought many things were low. And we didn't value the most valuable asset, and I didn't put it on the statement. But it is the most valuable asset. Wait a second. But it is the most valuable asset is the brand value. Okay. Again, this is Trump speak.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't have this transcript like ever. I'm totally cold reading this.
We're both cold reading.
Yeah, but you're like a professional reader.
Oh, fair enough.
Anyways, I'm just having fun with my friend Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked about that, and I really didn't. I didn't put it on the statement. But if you look at the companies, the brand value is a very big part of the asset value of the company.
This trial is about the fact that they say he committed fraud by filling out valuations for properties that they say were grossly inaccurate and designed to trick the bank. The bank is not complaining. The bank is happy. He paid off the loan, or certainly they essentially paid off the loan, and nobody cares about it. And he says that this is ridiculous. It's bizarre for the AG to be looking into this, and there's no way on earth that they would, if not for the fact that it was Donald Trump who they felt they can go after here. And he also says that there's a disclaimer, what he calls a disclaimer, which is actually a worthless statement, which precedes these financials and says, hey, these are all my valuations, and they're kind of just off the top of my head, and some of them are purely guesswork. You really shouldn't rely on these. And the judge, when they moved to dismiss, saying, what about this disclaimer? The judge said, you can't disclaim because much of this information is purely in his own knowledge. He's the only one who has this information, and you cannot disclaim information you give over when you're the only one who has the ability to get it. What is this information that he alone has? This is some of the things that we should be thinking about. Oh, really? This information that only Trump has when he's coming up with these valuations that there's no way they could have? Yeah, apparently Trump alone has access to Zillow. The banks didn't have access to that. Trump alone is able to figure out how many units are on a property. There's no way for the banks to figure that out unless Trump tells them the truth on that. Trump alone is the one who knows how many floors are in a building. No one else on the planet knows how many floors are in that building that's fully occupied. No one else knows how many floors are actually in that building. He alone has that information, and that's why it's not fair for him. That's why he can't rely on this disclaimer clause, because the banks had absolutely no way of looking into this on their own. So that's why the court needs to intercede here and protect these helpless banks who got paid off every penny of what they were asking for, because that's what we need a judge and an AG to do. So that's what this case is about.
Is it really 34 degrees up there?
I haven't been.
I don't know. I'm looking at the little weather thing down in the bottom right.
Oh, yeah, now. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, you can have it. I'm down in Florida.
All right. We again I'm probably not going to ask you much about brand value. Your attorneys are free to ask you about brand, of course, because that actually would inflate the value of these properties. Now, so I'm going to pretend that there's no such thing as brand value. That if you have two properties that are identical in very similar situated property locations, your two properties that are identical, and one of them was owned by Trump and the other was owned by Joe Smith, that those two properties go for exactly the same thing, right? There's no extra value that no one would pay extra just because it's where Trump lived, right? No one will pay an actual penny for that, right? Okay. We going back to the I'm probably not going to ask you too much about brand value. Your attorneys are free to ask you about brand value. Going back to the estimate.
Excuse me, sir, but if I wanted to build a statement like you said that I would before, up and found out exactly how rich you were, I would have added brand value here and they would have increased it by tens of millions of dollars.
Do you have an understanding of whether a statement of financial condition prepared under GAAP is allowed to include brand value?
It's an asset. Coca-Cola includes it in big other companies, public companies. I think they all include brand value. And I became president because of my brand. I sell books at levels that are incredible because of my brand and so many other things. And if I wanted to build this statement, like you're saying, they would have been surprised. I'm sorry.
You were very surprised.
You were very surprised. Words are important. You were very surprised when you saw the real numbers. And now you go a different way. You changed your case midstream. If you wanted to build my financial statement, all I had to do is add brand value to my financial statement. It would be very, very substantial.
Mr. Wallace, did you ask for an essay on brand value? He did. He said
it's like
he asked whether GAAP is allowed under brand value. So, did you ask for an essay on brand value? No, Your Honor. My question was, and I will ask it again, Mr. Trump. Do you have an understanding of whether a statement of financial condition that is prepared under GAAP is allowed to include brand value?
I think it is because public companies have brand value. Coca-Cola has brand value.
And did you ever discuss with Mr. Weisselberg whether or not, under the rules of GAAP, you were allowed to include your brand value on the statement of financial condition?
No, because I didn't care about it. I didn't care whether we added it or not. It wasn't something that was important to me. If I wanted to build up my numbers in a fake way, which you're trying to say, but now you are not, maybe you were going a different direction. But I didn't care enough about it to bother with it.
That was a yes. That was a yes and no question. It could have been answered yes and yeah, it could have been. He didn't have to.
But it was like a Trump yes or no answer.
If you received such a question. So the statement was primarily prepared by Alan Weisselberg, but you can see here where the judge is just, what the hell is just.
Yeah, the judge is totally gunning for Trump here.
Yeah, I mean it's so apparent that it's astonishing. So the statement was primarily prepared by Alan Weisselberg and Jeff McConney. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they would give you a copy of the statement. Is that correct?
Yes, at some point.
And you would, in fact, review it. Is that correct?
Yes, in some cases.
And as we just discussed, the only example you remember of an asset being higher than you thought should be was your apartment. Is that correct?
There were a couple of other things. I just don't remember. You were talking about a lot of years ago.
It's actually not at all what he said. He said Mar-a-Lago is higher. He said a bunch of them. He said Doral is higher. He said 40 Wall Street's higher. I don't know what he's talking about. There were a couple of would you discuss the statement with Mr. Weisselberg?
Very little.
When you say very little, what discussions did you have with Mr. Weisselberg about the statement?
I would look it over. I may have a suggestion or something, but very little. It wasn't very important. You have made it important, but it wasn't important. It wasn't important financially. Most developers don't use accountants for this. They just take a piece of paper and they write the name of the building and the address of the building and what they think it's worth. They don't go through all of this. I don't believe any developer, at least that I know of, has done a statement as so thorough as this. And frankly, so lowball as this statement is much less valuable in terms of the dollar amount than the actuality of the wealth or the worth.
All right, so I think they switch over court reporters here, which is not really relevant. So this statement was prepared in a manner that you agree with, that you think was appropriate.
That was fine. It was fine. I didn't go into great detail on it, but it was fine.
If anything, you think the statement undervalued your assets. Is that correct?
Well, I do by a substantial amount. It was the opposite of your case. Your case was that I had no money at all. I mean, looking at this year, what could I have 300 some odd $1 million based on saw 300? Let me look. But phony statements and the defrauded banks, and even
You
though
sued me.
oh, I'm sorry, I have to read all of the words. Skip
I
sentences as
scrolled
we
on
go.
you. I scrolled on you, so that's why.
Yeah, it's all good. Hold on 1 second. Hey, for what it's worth, I've never done this before, in front of 500 of our friends.
Right.
And what you're the hell doing, Joe? Reading the 2 or 3 other parts and then offering commentary between them. It's pretty damned awesome. And I don't know that people appreciate quite how difficult that must be. I know I'm having a hard time just reading sentences in front of me.
They practice. It comes with practice.
Yeah, it's like rah Joe. All right, let's have some fun. But you sued me on the basis that Trump had no money and he wrote up phony statements and defrauded banks, even though they were represented by the biggest law firms in the world and the most sophisticated of the best lawyers. And even though these banks were paid back in full, there was no harm. There was no anything. Everyone got their money in full. There was no victim. And then you were saying I deferred it. The banks don't even know what they were doing in the case. They said you paid us back.
Sorry, I had a little problem.
It's down here. You paid. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I had a little problem.
Oh,
I had a problem with
come
my
on,
own
have a
thing.
little fun.
No, I had a problem with my tabs here, so it just were playing weird. Your Honor, I move to strike that answer. Granted. Mr. Kais, can you control your client? This is not a political rally. This is a courtroom with a case about executive law section 6312. I've asked the witness several times to answer the questions. I don't want editorializing. We'll be here forever and we'll accomplish nothing. Maybe you should have a talk with him right now. Your Honor, I'll do as you instruct. You're in control of the courtroom, not me. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. Truly, I don't, but I'm happy to do as you instruct. Again, we're dealing with an extraordinarily unusual situation here. Again is a bad word. I know it is. I know it's part of the record. It's an extraordinary situation. It would be most efficient ultimately to allow the explanations. It's a bench trial. I disagree. Talk to your client for a minute. Okay, then should we take our 10-minute break? And I can't do it here. No. Do you want to go in the back? If we're going to have a conversation, I would ask Your Honor to give us a 10-minute break. Will you spend the 10 minutes in the back explaining the rules here? I think the former and, again, soon-to-be chief executive of the United States understands the rules.
Wow. Wow. The former and the, again, soon-to-be chief executive. Jesus Christ.
Wow. That's his way of basically saying to the judge,
he's going to get reelected anyway. So why?
I think that the former and soon-to-be, again, the chief executive, that is beautiful. That is so
fired. You're so fired.
No, this is a way of him being put me in your cabinet.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, right.
He doesn't abide by them. I'm happy to do as you instruct. Again, I think Mr. Wallace's questions still are very broad questions. They do call, in some sort of senses, they call for narratives. So I'm happy to restate my last question, Your Honor, and to see if we can proceed. The last question was, if anything, do you think the statement was undervalued your assets? Is that correct?
Yes, by a lot. The financial statements.
Yes. Would you discuss the valuation of individual properties with Mr. Weisselberg and Mr. McConney?
On occasion. I disagreed.
If I disagreed. Yeah, in other words, the point is, he only would bring it up if he disagreed with what Weisselberg and McConney did. That was the point.
But only on occasion.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Do you recall discussing with Mr. Weisselberg and Mr. McConney the valuation of Mar-a-Lago?
No.
Would they ever ask your opinion about the valuation of 40 Wall Street?
They might. Yes.
Seven Springs?
A little bit. It was done largely by a big law firm who had testified, as you know.
You're referring to Sherry Dillon?
Yes.
Sherry Dillon did the valuation of Seven Springs?
Yes, very much her transaction. She was at a very prestigious firm, one of the most prestigious firms.
One of the best firms. It's one of the most prestigious firms.
Everybody says so.
Everybody says it's one of the best firms. I think you already said it, but did you not consider the statement of financial condition to be an important document, correct?
Whoa, bro. It's nice to see, but it's not very important when it comes to borrowing money. As I think you've learned, I'm very underleveraged, relevant to the asset value.
I wasn't here for this part. I'm so curious whether he said levered or leveraged.
I can't imagine he said levered. God, no way.
Why was it nice to see?
It's a compilation. We'll use that word that you've been using for 2 weeks. It was a nice restatement of assets, and you could go up on some and down on some, but it was nice compilation of assets. It's a great statement, particularly the year you picked. I had essentially $342 million worth of cash. It's a lot of cash. Some people borrow money for tax purposes because you can deduct interest and other reasons, but it's a lot of cash. The banks came to me. They wanted to make deals with me. They liked me very much.
Very much.
Very much.
Graph to gain money or advantage to see. Oh, this was back when you said they claimed that he would have had to pay higher interest if he didn't inflate his numbers. But again, the banks never made that claim. Joseph, Joe doesn't deserve our praise. Yeah, that's right. I don't deserve your praise.
Well, you get my praise.
No,
I
thank
mean,
you. See this?
Yeah,
look at this judge. Look at this judge. He gives a thing. He gives the banks came to me. They want to make deals with me. They like me very much. Stricken.
Yeah, it's like well, there it is. It's not so very.
It is
stricken,
no objection. He's just striking. This is just unbelievable.
That's
it's
like
really
such an
unbelievable
asshole move.
He is. I mean, I might say that if he wasn't a New York judge.
No, they're elected in New York. That's right. You can't talk about them because you're a member of the New York bar. And
stricken once he got into the last sentence or two. Yeah, Anna, I would ask it be stricken after the statement. It was nice to see. It was a nice restatement of assets. Well, or it was a nice compilation of assets. I don't mind the part about how much cash he had, so we'll end it after that. Your Honor, again, noted Mr. Wallace's question, why was it nice to see? When lawyers are in depositions, they ask questions like why. That's what they do. When they get to a trial, usually what they do is ask more focused questions. Or they sit at counsel's table and don't ask questions and they throw up a bunch of ridiculous questions. Mr. Wallace, are you done? I'm just trying to make a point for the record. And that is, if you ask open-ended questions, then he can anticipate open-ended answers. And it's not fair to put all this on the witness. I understand your Honor's instructions. I think the witness does. But if you ask a why questions are usually in depositions, not in trial, unless you already know the answer. The open-ended questions was about why it was nice to see. I did not ask about the cash on the record. It's not relevant to the answer. I think that's the issue. Oh, here we go. Alina Howe. It's absolutely relevant. That's his opinion. Sorry. I'm not trying to do you dirty, Alina. But I gotta try to find some way to distinguish. It's absolutely relevant. That's his opinion why. When you ask a witness why, they're going to give you an opinion as to why. You now stated your objection. I'm being filibustered by the witness and counsel. I would like to proceed. Okay, just proceed. Going back to the work of Mr. McConney, Mr. Weisselberg, you understood that they were making a good faith effort to put down the value of properties. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
You understood that they used common sense to prepare the statements. Is that correct?
I hope so. I don't know, but I hope so.
And as we stated, if anything, you thought the valuations they reached were too low, correct?
Absolutely. Well, that's been proven.
Okay, let's go through a few of those valuations. If we could turn to page 8 of this document, the top we see, this is the Nike Town property. If we look at the middle paragraph here, the third paragraph, it says, quote, the estimated current value of $348,800,000 is based on an evaluation by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals, applying a capitalization rate to the cash flow to be derived pursuant to the building's net rental stream. Do you believe that statement to be true and accurate?
No.
How is it inaccurate?
The net rental stream is one way, but the bigger value is the holdup. Well, it's not a nice term in real estate, but it's called holdup value. I'm directly with that site and behind. Oh, wait a minute. I'm directly with that site and behind and next to the fifth, next to on 57th Street.
He's describing where the property is.
Yeah. Oh, I see. I get it.
With
Yeah,
that site and behind and next to on 57th Street.
Right, which is probably the best location, the best location on 57th Street. It's the best location in New York. I'm directly on Tiffany. They cannot expand without us, and I'm directly next to IBM. So I'm between IBM and Tiffany. And the holdup value is $348 million for holdups, Probably what I mean, if you know real estate, it's peanuts compared to what the value is.
Just pause for a second.
Yeah,
what he's trying to explain here is this.
The geography here.
It's not that you can get by renting out these properties, the $348 million that's valued there, but the holdup value is this. That there's an expectation that Tiffany's or IBM, who's right next door, is going to want to expand into his space. And he can basically hold them hostage, hold them up like a bank robber. That's why I said it's not a nice term. He can basically be a jerk about it, and he can push them as high as $348 million if they come to him and they're looking to expand. That's how much he thinks that he'd be able to heist out of them, even though the property itself as is not worth it as far as what you can rent out. That's what he's trying to explain here with this lengthy answer.
So I view that as it's a great property. It's a great rental stream, as you probably have figured out, but it's got much more value as a holdup. They could come to me and offer me $500 million for that site in 2 minutes if they wanted to expand or if they wanted to do something.
The statement, however, is that the estimated current value as of June 30, 2014.
Yes.
So the $500 million price you just referred to, that's as of today, correct?
No. I would say it would be as of any time. It's just it's
so what he's trying to say here, because now what Wallace is trying to pin him on is you're trying to say that based on now, but that's not what it was worth back then. And Trump is like, no. That holdup value is what it was worth if they would have come to me back then. That's what it was. So that's what Trump is not giving in on, and wisely not giving on that. I'm not asking for further explanation.
It could be any time. It could be then. It could be now.
So there's no change of value of this $500 million value since 2014?
Well, I don't want to sell it. If I wanted to sell it, I had discussions with Tiffany for years about the possibility, do something. In fact, they rented from me now for a lot of money. But if Tiffany used, as you know, as you possibly heard, when Tiffany was rebuilding their store, they came to me and they wanted to do something. And I leased it to them for a period of time. But they would love to be the owner of that site. My point is a holdup. It's not a nice word. It's a holdup site. And holdup sites in New York have made.
The question was, has there been a change of value since 2014? You said, I don't want to sell it. So I take it the answer is no.
No, I think it's gotten more valuable like everything else.
So do you not think that the statement in your 2014 statement of financial condition is accurate, correct?
Well, it's a great rental stream, but I think real value here is the value it would be for IBM or Tiffany if they wanted to say, and they do, at least Tiffany does.
This statement says the estimate was based on a valuation by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals. What was your role in preparing that valuation?
I think I mentioned to them the value of that is it makes a lot of money, throws off a lot of money, as you see, because you see the numbers. And now more than ever, because Tiffany had to pay us a lot of money in order to lease it. I just wanted to lease it. We gave them a 5-year lease while they built their store. Their building, as you know, they just opened, but they would love to own it. And so would, I believe, IBM. I don't talk to IBM at all, but they can't expand without it. I believe that. I did mention quickly, I didn't know if this wasn't something I devoted a lot of time to, but I mentioned to them there is tremendous hold of value on that site. Again, 57th Street. If you have, I'm sorry, there's no if there. You have Tiffany, IBM. You have my building right in the middle of them. And if they want to expand anywhere, they have to go through my building. And I bought the air rights.
Hold on.
Excuse me. I thought I bought the air rights over Tiffany, so they can't go up.
In addition to the answers being non-responsive, they're repetitive, and we don't have time to waste. We have 1 day with this witness. Mr. Kais, can you control your witness, because I am considering drawing a negative inference to any questions that might be asked. What the hell?
Hey, Joe, I think I know the answer to this. What the hell are the air rights? Right? He's not obviously not talking about aircraft.
No, so air rights in real estate basically mean the building is 4
so many stories high.
Yeah, but the air rights basically mean that you have the right to build above it, as opposed to someone can sell you a building and retain the air rights, which means
you sell me a 5-story building, I can't make it a 6-story building without your permission.
Correct, because I retain the air rights. And you also might, someone might be able to, if they can get zoning, they might be able to build out over you.
The building next door.
The building next door might build out over you if they want.
The big overlooking restaurant or whatever.
Whatever, yeah. So that's all part of the air rights. Anything above the building as standing currently is called the air rights.
So Trump's saying he's got the air rights here?
Yeah, he's like not only do I have the building, but I have the air rights also. So if they want to build anything, if they want to move out in any direction at all, even if they're a taller building, even if they're in theory, if he has a 20-story building and they have a 90-story building, they're not allowed to build up on the 50 floors above him, because he has all the air rights. So that's what he's saying. Basically, he's basically saying that he has them by the cojones, and that they must deal with him if they want to expand in his direction at all. That's why he's saying that.
Sounds like a pretty valuable right to have,
Yeah, no, and in New York City, worth a lot of money, as you can see. As you can see, I think the former soon-to-be chief executive of the U.S. is like that scene in Man of Steel when Superman allows himself to be handcuffed for a bit. Yeah, get Chandler Remington to read Habit. She's a pro at doing these dramatic readings.
Hey, the more the merrier.
I don't know if she's around. Yeah. But my point here is the court is ridiculous here. I mean, this is just astonishing. He's going so above and beyond. You can understand why his counsel is so frustrated here. So Mr. Kai says, well, I would urge your honor not to draw the negative inferences. We have a record on that, which I won't go into, but I think the witness is doing his best to answer the questions and be as responsive as possible. If you think that it would be beneficial for us to take a break, I'm happy to do that. This is your honor's courtroom. So I'll do is she keeps saying that, which is basically like when attorneys call another attorney counselor. It's like, this is your house. I follow your rules, because that's what we as attorneys, we litigators know, that when you're in their courtroom, you're in their, it's like being in the king's court. You have to do whatever. He's the king of that domain. So, and it's important to make sure that they can't draw any connotation of disrespect from what you're saying, because that, you're under his thumb at that point in time. This is your honor's courtroom, so I'll do as you suggest. But again, the questions are calling, maybe not as broadly as the answer, but they're not tight questions. I mean, we're seeing why questions. We're seeing how questions. I mean, this is not someone who's a professional lawyer or witness. So he's answering based on his responses and the reactions to the questions. Mr. Trump, You testified under oath many times, correct? So now Wallace, who's the one asking the questions, is basically trying to show he knows what he's doing a lot more than you're pretending, Mr. Kais. Mr. Trump, you testified under oath many times, correct?
Yes.
The question was, what did you do based on an evaluation of Mr. Trump in conjunction of his associates and outside professionals? And you said you talked to them about the hold-up value. Is there anything else you did in preparing this valuation in 2014?
No, I don't think so.
Did you ultimately approve this valuation?
No.
Did you approve the issuance of this statement?
I think they did something with it because when I told them about the hold-up value, they said, well, you're right.
Who's they?
The people compiling the statement. They couldn't have been Mazars, too.
It could have been Mazars.
It could have been Mazars, too, yeah.
Did you?
It didn't make a big deal. I didn't make a big deal.
I didn't ask you if you made a deal. I'm asking if you told Mazars about the hold-up value for the 2014 statement of financial condition.
It's a long time ago. I probably did, but I told Jeff and I told Alan. And
okay, do you believe that the stated value of $348 million was based on true and accurate information? He keeps asking the same stupid question.
Right. Well, as a hold-up, I think it's very low.
I'm not asking about the hold-up. I'm asking about whether you have an understanding whether this valuation, your statement of financial condition, was based on true and accurate information. It's a yes or no question.
Well, I say it differently. I wouldn't sell it for that number. If somebody offered me that number, I wouldn't sell it for that number.
I'm not asking your individual valuation. I'm not asking for an analysis. I'm just asking if whether the information that Mr. McConney and Mr. Weisberg used was true and accurate when they reached this number.
I guess so. I really can't answer that. I guess so. It's a number that I wouldn't sell it for.
Okay. Can we move down to the bottom of this page? We have the header for 40 Wall Street. And if we flip over to the next page, we'll see evaluation for 40 Wall Street. The top paragraph says, the estimated current value of $550,100,000 is based upon a successful renegotiation of the ground lease and an evaluation made by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals of leases that have been signed or are currently the subject of negotiation, and a capitalization rate applied to resulting cash flow to be derived from the building's operations. Do you believe that statement I just read is true and accurate?
I don't believe. It depends on how you look at it, but I don't believe it talks about the making of the building, the condominium, a residential condominium, which is absolutely a perfect use of that building.
My question is,
even though it's full,
is this statement true and accurate?
Well, let's see. So number one, you go back a long time. Are you still in 2014?
We're still on the 2014 statement.
5-year statute of limitations. You are still in 2014. So it says here, based on successful renegotiation of the ground lease, that was done. I did that. I made a new 100-year lease, and that very good lease, a long-term, very long-term. I got a lollipop in a lease. It's a legal term. Believe it or not, it's a lollipop, which allows you to build condominiums because you own the land. You own a piece of the land. That gives you the right to build condominiums. So this would be a low number, because the highest and the best use of that building is, I think it's the tallest building in downtown after the World Trade Center, but there's a dispute about 60 Pine Street, but whatever. The tower is the perfect measurement for turning them into condos. And I have the right to do that. And I have some point somebody will do that. That's the highest, the best use. In which case, 550 million is a very low number. All you have to do is a picture of the bill. All you have to do is look at a picture of the building and say, that building. You just look at it and you say, that's worth a lot more than 550 million. If you want to put up that picture.
My question is, Mr. Kais, that was a simple yes or no question. I don't have it right in front of me, but the question was whether he believed that was an accurate number. We got another speech. I would beseech you to control him if you can. If you can't, I will. I will excuse him and draw every negative inference that I can. Do you understand that? I certainly understand, Your Honor. But I will say this. The purpose of this trial is to determine the veracity of the statement of financial condition, in part to figure out whether there is intent. So I would think respectfully, Your Honor, of all witnesses would want to hear everything that this witness has to say by way. No, I do not want to hear everything this witness has to say. He has a lot to say that has nothing to do with the case or the questions.
Well, that's true.
Which, by the way, I think this is the quote where she said, where the court reporter took down as everything. I think that he actually phrased it as, I don't want to hear anything the witness has to say. Meaning, I think that this is like, the court reporter seems very generous to Judge Engoran. And you'll see it later that there's a quote from him that everyone in the room heard and the court reporter never took down, which is, don't do it, Chris. That statement is not anywhere in this transcript.
Is there an audio recording of this?
No. But every one of us heard it. We all tweeted it out like right away. Like, can you believe he just said, "Don't do it, Chris"?
No shit.
It's nowhere in this transcript. Nowhere, which is astonishing. But I think, look, court reporters have a habit of cleaning it up for attorneys that they like or don't like. It's not unheard of if it's something that seems relatively innocuous and not so important, but that's a glaring omission. And I think that when he said, I don't want to hear everything, I think that he actually said, I don't want to hear anything this way.
Well, who fights for the court reporters?
And the reason I say that, court reporters,
the court reporters step on the wrong side of the street like anybody else does, right? And someone's going to say, well, wait a minute. That's Joe. And Joe's been my court reporter for 15 years. Who's going to make that argument? Who's their advocate?
Against them?
Well, who's the court reporter's advocate? When a court reporter has any transgression of any type.
Well, he or she would have to have an attorney.
Well, but the court reporter works in the court. I guess what I'm getting at is, I presume the judge who favors the court reporter is going to just by social deference keep anybody at bay who would want to throw a barb at the reporter.
Oh, I mean, if anything, the judge would do that. But I'm saying court reporters handle depositions also. So, so a lot of times, many attorneys have an issue with, they'll say a lot. If they don't like the attorney, every and gets, or those filler words get thrown in there. If they do like the attorney, they get sliced out. It's how conscientious the court reporter wants to be, and the court reporter can be a little bit of a dick about it by basically throwing in like. That's what you typed. That's what you said.
You
said it. That's my job. I'm doing my job here.
Doing my job.
Sometimes you think to yourself, man, I think the court reporter might have thrown in a few extra there. But the reason I think that this court reporter was ridiculously kind is I'm just going to pull up from his decision. From his own decision, because they addressed this, that he made this statement that he doesn't want to hear anything from the judge, from Donald Trump,
from Donald,
in their motion for a mistrial. And this is his decision on that. And over here he says, to the extent the defendants argue that I've exhibited bias by stating in court that I'm not here to hear what Donald Trump has to say, he didn't say everything, everything. He took out the word everything. Everything helps him a lot. It sounds a lot less awful when he says, I'm not here to hear everything he has to say. I don't think he ever said the word everything. I think he might have said anything or left out the word altogether. Because if the word everything was there, and the judge explains, it says, such an argument is disingenuous and made in bad faith. To defend submitted, I said immediately after that sentence, which is, I'm here to hear him answer questions. So that's what we're up to over here in the deposition. I don't want to hear everything this way. Why is this court reporter put the word everything in here, but the judge somehow left that out? To me, the word everything helps the judge, makes him look more favorable.
Or at least more interested in the truth.
Right. And just not wanting to hear BS. But he didn't put that. And that's why I'm saying I think this court reporter, I think what he actually said was anything. Yeah. I think when you look at Alina Habba's statement, she goes, what he said was, I don't want to hear anything that Donald Trump has to say. And she came out blistering in news reports saying that's what his statement was. I don't want to hear anything this witness has to say. And that says everything you need to know about this trial. So he took out the modifier altogether, just said, I want to hear what this witness has to say. And the court reporter did one better by saying everything. Anyway, no, I don't want to hear anything this witness has to say. He has a lot to say that has nothing to do with this case or the questions. Again, Your Honor, I have to say that you're determining what's going to happen here. So I would urge the court to take in all the information possible, including what this witness has to say about the numbers on the statement, what he did, why he did it. I mean, all these circumstances. Do we really want to come back here in a few weeks and go through it that way? I mean, with this witness, I would suggest it's far more efficient to listen to what he has to say and take it in, and then you have an understanding of what he has to say. And I don't think it's fair to draw negative inference because of his explanations, simply because he wants to explain why he got to where he was. We're talking about 10 years ago. And so I ordinarily, with a witness, you might think differently. But this is a situation where you have on the stand a candidate for presidency of the United States. Having him here takes away from that effort. And so the most efficient way I would submit to the court to get through this is to listen to what he has to say. And then you can weigh it one way or the other. I don't think you should respectfully draw a negative inference. And again, I'm happy to discuss this and take a break. More than happy to do that. I'm not saying not to do that, but I would just like the court to take in the perspective, because this is a different situation. It's an unusual situation, and it would be most efficient. The court needs to hear what he has to say about what happened with the statements and why he thinks they're viable and why there is no intent. He's describing to you why there's no intent to mislead anyone with his answers. That's what he's doing. And so I would think that's highly relevant and highly probative. If you want to do it the way where we have yes or no questions, and then we go back and do it that it's subject to your direction. But I think it's the most efficient way to listen to what he has to say. I'm happy to talk to him about making the answers more contained. We certainly don't want to waste any more time than necessary and spend any more time than necessary. But this is, as you've acknowledged, this is a unique situation. If I may also ask, Your Honor, I had to cross-examine Mr. Cohen. If I can get him to answer the questions in yes or no, I advise Mr. Wallace to look at that cross-examination. It was far more succinct. The reality of the situation is he put up 2 paragraphs which talk about interest rates, the current value, as well as tenants, et cetera, et cetera. But if you would like to narrow it, then you narrow it. But President Trump is answering about 40 Wall Street and the values, the interest rates, the purpose of the SOFC. This is absolutely relevant. So I'm going to push back and say it's time to start pushing back on the AG. Kevin can try to ask better questions, and then we'll move on. But he's relevant. He's talking about 2 paragraphs of information. He's explaining them. Ask some questions. You'll get succinct answers. Well, Mr. Kais, I think you said several times we should hear what he did, what the witness has to say. No, I'm not here, and these people are not here, and the Attorney General is not here to hear what he has to say. Oh!
Really? I'm sorry, why are we here?
We're here to hear him answer questions, and most of the time he's not. So that's what they're saying that his follow-up was. So I stand corrected. Court reporter, I apologize if I malign you. This is the actual quote here. He goes into speeches. It's very simple. Is this an accurate number? We don't need a whole speech. It's not that simple. I apologize. It's not that simple, and you're here to hear what he has to say. No, I'm not here to hear what he has to say. Thank you. So, yeah. So why is it that he says here that he followed up with, I'm here to hear him answer questions? Okay. I'm here to hear him answer questions. Sit down already. Mr. Kais, Ms. Kais, Mr. Kais, Ms. Haba, sit down. Mr. Walls, continue. This is back on you now.
Oh, I'm sorry. The witness.
Yeah.
This is a very unfair trial. Very, very. And I hope the public is watching it.
Mr. Trump, what was the valuation presented here based on your leases and capitalization rates, true and accurate to your belief?
It could be, but again, I told you, is a building has many different forms of value. And this building, the most valuable asset here is making it into condominiums. That would be, it would happen as soon as interest rates go down and as soon as the city maybe comes back. It would be nice if it came back, wouldn't it? But the value is, the big value of this is making it into a condominium, a residential condominium.
Could we put up
It would be one of the biggest jobs in the city.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 635? It's already in evidence, but I have an extra copy for the witness. There's a very thick document. I'm not going to ask you to go through all of it, but it's an email from Jeff McConney and Jack Weiselberg, Ladder Capital, attaching a modification of the ground lease. The email is dated April 10th, 2015. If you go to page 3 of this document, I'll put it up on the screen for you. You could see it at the top. Title says, "This is a resume of the 4th modification of the ground lease on 40 Wall Street, New York City." We flip over to page 4. Do we have a copy of this document for the witness? He has a copy. I'm sorry. It's already in evidence. If we look at the header, condominium conversion right, it says paragraph 4 eliminates the tenant's condominium conversion rights, which he had under section 2709. Do you recall that in this amendment to the ground lease, your condominium conversion rights were eliminated?
No, because I have a right to do a co-op. You could do a condo. You could do a condo, but I have the right to do a co-op. I believe I have a right to do a condo because we have a lollipop clause, but I have a right to do a co-op.
If you're wondering what a lollipop clause is, so am I.
Yeah. YouTube rules.
What is a lollipop clause? That's a good lollipop. Let's see if I can find something that makes sense. I'm gonna put in real estate.
Hey Joe, I'm gonna step away for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll keep reading. All right. It's an escalation clauses in real estate, I think. A lollipop clause. I don't know. He's using language here that is not really very apparent to Google. So, yeah. All right. If we go back to the statement of financial condition, that's Exhibit 730. We're on page 9. Did this valuation include the lollipop conversion that you were talking about? I don't know. It was around that time. I renegotiated the lease, and we got a new lease. And one of the things in the lease was a lollipop conversion. My question is about this statement, though, which says, quote, that the valuation is based on leases that have been signed and capitalization rates. There's no mention here of converging to condos. Is there? Well, I know that you're asking. You're talking about the estimated current value. And the estimated current value would be a co-op condo. I'm not asking about what you could do. I'm asking about what was actually prepared. I don't know because I didn't do it. Okay, what was the stated value? Let me ask, did you approve of this valuation? I accepted it. It was just one of many. This is a very big statement. I have many different things, and this is one of the many values. I accepted it. I didn't say, oh, gee, it should be higher or lower. And you approved the statement's issuance? Yeah, I accepted it. Other people did it, but I didn't say make it higher, make it lower. Was the $550 million valuation here based on true and accurate information? I assume so. If we can go back to page 20 of 26 here, and if we see at the bottom of the page is the listing for the mansion at Seven Springs, I'll direct your attention to the paragraph. First sentence of this listing says, an entity wholly owned by Mr. Trump acquired a property known as the Mansion at Seven Springs in Bedford, New York, which consists of over 200 acres of land, a mansion, and other buildings. This property is zoned for 9 luxurious homes. It has been valued at $291 million based on an assessment made by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates. So the projected net cash flow, which either derived at those units as those units are constructed and sold, and the estimated fair value of the existing mansion and other buildings. Do you have an understanding of whether that $291 million valuation is true and accurate?
I thought it was too high. And we lowered it, I guess the next statement or sometime, but I thought it was too high. But this is the equivalent of Mar-a-Lago in New York. And I think it sells for, I think it's valued. I think the value is higher if you don't build additional housing. This is it's a magnificent place. This is the kind of place that somebody will pay a lot for. I think more money than if you build 9 or 16 or 20 units of other homes on the site. I think the site, as I remember, is 213 acres. And I think this is much more valuable, actually, without the building. I think it's more valuable the way it is.
Your Honor, I think maybe we need to take a break now. And if Mr. Kais could talk to the witness, I think I would appreciate it. Let's take, how long a break would you suggest? Make it 15 minutes so it's easy, a 15-minute break? Thank you. I'll direct the witness not to talk about the case or his testimony than in the ways that I've asked. And so it went. Now they come back here 15 minutes later. I get Shapiro's never Trump strategy now. Lose 2024, let it go horrible, then be able to vote for a real libertarian like 2028, like Argentina.
Have you seen any of the interviews with this guy in Argentina?
No, I haven't.
He's on fire.
Is he?
Yeah. What about the liberal this and what about because they're shit? Because they're shit. You can't give them an inch. They'll take them. He makes Trump look tame.
Really?
The guy is on fire. I mean, of course, what I saw was the translations. I don't speak Spanish,
right?
But he's not. No, he's not being nice about it. He had Shapiro did a video with him of him. He's got a whiteboard just crossing off departments and government agencies. Agency of this gone, agency of that gone. You know, just really baller stuff. This he's not worried about making friends.
It's not the worst Trump ever. Mine is the worst Trump ever. If someone feels
I
thought you were doing great.
I'm having fun with my friend Joe on the stream.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to. I think
you're doing. I think you're doing awesome. Okay.
But if anybody wants to jump in, you know, and I wouldn't take it as a challenge. Yeah. It's not a challenge. It's like I'm hanging out with my friend Joe, having a beer, reading through this badly. And if anybody else wants to jump in, come on. It's fun.
It's all good. Yeah, don't shy away. Don't shy away.
No, the more the merrier. I would be happy if somebody came in and did a better job than me.
Anyone Rumble sitting here saying that they want to jump in? Anyone at all?
That's fine.
If you think I miss you, send $1 super chat, and I won't miss you, and I'll
capitalist pig.
So Debbie explains New York Times Lollipop condo is a legally separate resident built on top of an existing apartment building named for the general shape of a real estate. Oh, so thank you. That's helpful. But I think you're doing great. So
I don't know. I'm just like I said. I've said it already. So
yeah,
stop saying it.
Mr. Wallace, please continue. Thank you, Anna. Mr. Trump, when we broke, we were looking at the valuation. By the way, I'm trying to sound like those.
Is your nose okay?
It's from
what happened there.
I'm doing the guy from The Simpsons, who's like
Quagmire. No, that's
the
not
the guy, the lawyer, but not Lionel Hutz, the other lawyer, like who's always the prosecutor.
Oh, geez.
From The Simpsons, like the one, like whenever
you're out boomering me, Joe.
Oh, stop it! It's still on TV. Mr. Trump, when we broke, we were looking at the valuation for Seven Springs in your 2014 statement of financial condition. I believe you said that the valuation you said eventually dropped that valuation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you eventually take a tax deduction based on the easement donation for Seven Springs?
I believe so. Yes.
You recall receiving appraisal showing that the total value of Seven Springs before the easement was $56 million.
No, I don't know. It could have happened, but I don't remember.
Do you remember if the easement appraisal was the reason for dropping the value of Seven Springs?
No. The person that did that, I believe, was Sherry Dillon. That was the law firm that we mentioned, and a very good one, a very prestigious, and she really was responsible for doing it. It was sort of, I think, her idea to do it.
So when you say the person that did that, that you're referring to
easement
is the easement donation itself?
Yes.
So if you did not decide to lower the value of Seven Springs based on the appraisal from the easement donation, what was the basis upon which you decided to drop the valuation?
Well, I thought it was high. I mean, I thought that. Well, I saw it was a statement. The statement was, wait a minute. When I saw it.
When I saw the statement,
when I saw
it, the statement
was done. Yeah, English words.
Well,
yeah,
I think a comma there that
yeah,
got cheated out of.
I got to read Queens a little more often.
Yeah, when I saw it, when I saw it,
the statement was done.
And I said I thought
that it was high. All right. And that was one of the ones that was high. That doesn't mean it's not going to get that kind of money, because that's the kind of place that would get that kind from the right person. But I thought it was high, and they dropped the value.
And so, in your view, the estimated current value of Seven Springs as of June 30, 2014 was not 291 millions. Is that correct?
I thought it was high. Maybe I'll sell it for more than that. I don't know. With that kind of property, you never know. But I thought it was high.
Is the Seven Springs easement donation under review by the IRS?
Not that I know of. It might be.
Well, was it at any point under review by the IRS?
I don't know.
Do you remember when you decided to lower the value of Seven Springs?
Well, I guess probably when I looked at it, I don't know if I looked immediately upon, because again, I haven't spent a lot of time on these statements because I realize the value of these statements is not that important. But then I looked at it. I thought it was high, and I said, you have to lower it.
So the answer is no. You don't remember when you decided to lower the value.
I don't remember. It might have been immediately, but it was, within a period of time.
If we could turn to page 21 of 26, this is the section of your statement of financial condition entitled Partnerships and Joint Ventures. And there's a reference to a joint venture that is 1290 Avenue of the Americas in New York, and 555 California Street in San Francisco, California. Are you familiar with these properties?
Yes.
Underneath that, it states, in May 2007, Mr. Trump and Vornado Realty Trust became partners in two properties, 1290 Avenue Americas, located in New York City, and 555 California Street, formerly known as Bank of America Center, located in San Francisco, California.
Mm-hmm.
If we look down a few more paragraphs, it states, Mr. Trump owns 30% of these properties. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And so you do not control the partnership with Vornado. Is that correct?
In many ways, it's better because I have no liability. I am a limited partner. That's limited liability. I have 30% interest, but my interest, I don't have to put up any money. I didn't put up any money, and I don't have to. I have a very good relationship with them. They are great and very professional. But it's also limited. It was limited. I had no liability for what I own. So it was a lot of people don't understand that. All right, yeah, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading that going, is that weird? That's weird.
It is.
Yeah. They think that a limited partnership gives you limited rights. In this case, it gives me limited liability.
The question was, so you do not control the partnership with Vornado. Is that correct?
I have 30% of the partnership, yes.
And so you do not control the partnership.
In the true sense, no. I will say this. We have a good relationship, and
very good relationship.
a very good relationship.
No, you answered the question.
And never had a problem.
And we appreciate that it is the true answer. Thank you. The next paragraph states the estimated current value of net debt, value net of debt, is $816,900,000. Is based on an evaluation made by Mr. Trump in conjunction with his associates and outside professionals. Is it true and accurate statement that you value the property based in conjunction with your associates and outside professionals?
I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the number. But I do know that, as you know, the one building is the Bank of America building. One of the most, the best building on the West Coast. And the other is a very great building in Manhattan on 6th Avenue of the Americas. That's what I said.
Yep.
We refinanced that building 3 years ago at a very, very low rate. And there were valuations placed on it then. And if you want, I can get you that information, but the valuations were very high.
The question was whether you made an evaluation in conjunction with your associates and outside professionals of the value of those two properties.
I don't know. It doesn't sound high to me, not for those buildings. So I don't know.
So I'm going to ask it again. The question is whether or not you made an evaluation of the property value.
Is that a double property right there? Is that both properties?
Both properties.
It doesn't sound high. I don't know if I was involved in that. I remember looking at it, but it didn't get my attention. I think it is worth more than that.
Hold on a second. Let me just pull up. I had a couple of super chats.
Yeah, do the super chat thing.
Yeah. Thank you for being you, staying true to yourself, and not going cuckoo like many in law. There's no such thing as law too. You're a force multiplier for intelligence and common sense. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Della. Monk says, God is truly hidden that they can get away with dragging him through the mud like this. Anything to destroy America and its champions. This is sadly too true. Debbie says, I was with my father for a year while he was selling a commercial building, and 0 people were willing to give a valuation beyond what the rent was. Commercial real estate is only worth what someone will buy it for. The appraisal was 100 pages with a range from 0 to 10 million. That's it. All right. And that's, I think a lot of it depends on what property you're talking about. I mean, it depends where the commercial real estate is. If it's Manhattan, everything, it's not like you just, build something else on Fifth Avenue. Whatever's there, it's there. So I think I'm not disputing what you're saying with respect to commercial real estate in general, but I do think that Manhattan is fairly unique in that respect.
It's peculiarly, it's corrupt.
Jenny, thank you for the super sticker. Much obliged. All right. Do you remember playing any role in evaluating the estimated current value of these 2 properties for any years between 2011 and 2021?
2021?
Correct.
You mean bringing it back to
all the way for the last 10 years? That 10-year period.
By the way, that was the hottest period ever for office properties. So I think you should know that, and you don't want me to talk much, but I think you should know that. No, I think the value sounds reasonable. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't know that I would sell my interest for that, actually.
I'm gonna hand the witness a document and ask the officer and excuse sorry, this is you.
And excuse me, the businesses have been refinanced 2 years ago.
There's no question pending. Mr. Trump, I have handed you a document that has been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 3344. This is an email from Jeff McConney to Donald Bender entitled Ferry Point. It is dated October 1, 2012. Your Honor, I ask this document to be entered into evidence. Objection! Statute of limitations! Overruled. It's in evidence. At the top, there's an email from Mr. McConney to Mr. Bender. It says, Doc, I'm almost done revising last year's footnotes. Alan wants S to speak to DJT tomorrow about the Vornado buildings. I'm going to send you a few emails with some info on new properties, Doral and Charlotte, and an update to the Scotland footnote. I want to ask if this refreshes your recollection about whether you had any conversation with Mr. McConney and Mr. Weisselberg about the value of the Vornado properties.
About the Vornado buildings?
Correct.
No, but I probably did.
If we go back to the statement of financial condition, if we can blow up this section with the valuation there, the estimated current valuation, the amount of debt, Mr. Trump, do you believe that the stated value here of $816 million was based on true and accurate information?
I think so. I hope so. I can say if you go to 2021, where it is more familiar to me because it's more updated, I think that would be a low number.
Were you involved in the preparation of the 2021 statement?
No.
Who was responsible for the preparation?
I don't know. That was when it was in trust. So I assume Alan and Jeff and perhaps they dealt a little bit with Don and Eric, but they were not involved with these statements very much at all, as I understand it.
Would you get copies of the statement in 2021?
I hadn't seen it. I was so busy in the White House. My threshold was China, Russia, and keeping our country safe.
My question is actually about 2021. Did you see a copy of the 2021 statement?
I don't believe so.
And just to clarify for the record, you weren't president in 2021, correct?
No, I wasn't.
Actually, he was. In fact, a lot of people make a big deal about that. He was president on January 6, 2021.
Like that was like the whole thing, right? Because he was still president, right?
No, I'm doing the voice from the Simpsons. If that there's a lawyer
making the prosecutor sound like the mob. Well, the prosecutor does sound like the mob.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, And stop it.
If we could turn back, if we go to page 23 of 26 in this document, and if we look at the bottom of the page on the category of other assets, it says Trump Tower. Mr. Trump owns a triplex apartment on the top 3 floors of Trump Tower. See note 3. I'll just represent to you that note 3 doesn't discuss your apartment. It discusses the building. Were you involved in the valuation of the triplex apartment for the statement of financial condition?
No. What date is this?
2014.
No, I wasn't.
Did there come a time when you determined that the valuation for your triplex apartment was too high?
Yes, I did.
After you made that determination, did Mr. Weisberg and Mr. McConney lower the valuation of your triplex apartment?
I believe so. Yes.
Did they do that at your direction?
I told them I thought it was too high. I thought the number was too high, and I know they lowered it after that. Yes.
If we could pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 758, this is a spreadsheet, so it's only going to be up on the screen here. If we go to row 893, this is a category other assets. And if we look down, if we go down to rows 969 and 971, this shows the valuation of your apartment. I'll represent to you that the valuation of the apartment is not actually in the statement of financial condition. It is incorporated. So this is where we're going to try and find it.
I'm sorry. I'm still like processing a spreadsheet with 1,000 rows, and somebody sat and flipped through all of these rows and went,
Yes.
aha,
Yeah.
look at that.
Yeah.
Aha,
Yeah.
969 and 971. We got the bastard. Really?
So sad, isn't it?
Oh my God. Maybe we jump off a bridge. I'm sorry. I think that's why I missed it also. Well, there you go. That's my freaking point.
Yeah, because 969. And it could be a 10,000 row thing for all we know.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you look, you can see here, I'll represent to you that column G are the values for 2013. Column H is the value for 2014. So you can see that it goes from 116 million in 2013 to 327 million in 2014. And so is it your understanding that the 327 million valuation is too high?
Yeah. And the reason I didn't pick it up sooner is that I thought it was high, but it's not mentioned. It is not broken down in the financial statement. So I wouldn't have known.
Okay, and I'm sorry, apparently this is the statement of financial condition for 2017, so I misrepresented.
That's okay. That's okay, Joe. Nice try. You can stay.
I remember when this happened in court when he said that's okay. So like the whole room like just broke.
Like pats him on the head.
The whole room, like, yeah, it's like he's like, don't worry. It's like, I forgive
That's
you,
okay.
Mr. Wallace. That's okay. The 2017 number is in G and the 2016 number is in H, so I apologize. Sorry, just to make the record clear, Kevin, this is the backup, not the SOFC. Correct. I think you said the SOFC on the record. And this is the backup for 2016. 2017. So showing a change from 2016 to 2017. It is very confusing which freaking years they're talking about here. And this change in valuation came at your direction?
Probably. I mean, I thought it was too high, but I don't know what is too high anymore because I'm seeing things being sold at numbers that are very high. But I thought it was too high. So I assumed that they didn't.
Do you have an understanding why the valuation was too high?
Well, I've heard different reasons, but one of the reasons was they did it off a broker. A broker was sending lists of apartments and they had it down to 30,000 feet. Is it 30? And another one was, I have the roof. We have access to the roof, which is very big. And when you add the roof, it's not that far off. And there are a lot of other reasons. And there is another reason. They just made a mistake. And that's why we have a disclaimer clause in case there's a mistake. There is a disclaimer clause where you don't have to get sued by the Attorney General of New York.
Mr. Trump, as you sit here today, do you know how big your triplex apartment is?
You wouldn't know. I've heard, obviously, because of the trial, they say 11 to 12, 13,000 feet.
At your deposition testimony, does it sound correct that you testified that each floor of Trump Tower is about 10,000 square feet?
as the floor and its triplex. And I think they probably took 10,000 feet per floor. I could see how it was done. They took
See, this is
10,000.
another thing that they're
Right.
claiming that he alone had access to. He's the only one who knows how many square feet there are on each floor of his triplex apartment, which is asinine. You can pull up the building's records and see
I mean, for
how big
crying,
each
crying
floor
out loud,
is.
the building has length and width.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So,
that's why
um,
it's so infuriating that the judge basically said, "Well, the disclaimer is not good because he was disclosing information that the bank had no way of verifying absent whatever he told them. They were totally dependent on him, so his disclaimer doesn't count." It's
eh,
like this is how many square feet there are on a floor in a building.
right,
Like
right.
you pull up the building plans, you know how many you take out for the elevator
And it's
shafts
not
and
like you
stuff.
can put a freaking hanger on the damn closet in a building in New York without asking for a permit. So any bank would be able to pull records, because if there's going
In
to be a
2 seconds.
partition in
In
that
2 seconds,
in that absolute square footage of the building,
they could
the,
probably do it
the
from their office.
maximum length and width of the floor, if someone's going to partition it from one huge suite to
Mhm.
two smaller suites or four smaller suites, there's a record.
Well, it's
And if the suite
when
gets a
the building's
closet,
built, there's
it's a
a
record.
record. When it's modified, there's a
Everything, there's a
record.
record for
Everything,
everything.
there's a record,
That's
and it's a
right.
public record, and
So it's
that's
not,
why it's
yeah,
it's
this is
asinine.
not like in some small town in Wisconsin somewhere.
Even if it was, there's always a record. We're very careful. We're very careful about our land records.
In New York, imagine that.
Joe, forgive me saying you don't deserve our praise as cult leader supreme. We are in your town. Don't worry about it. So I didn't take any offense. By the way, there's a whole bunch of super chats that I missed
No, read a bunch of them, dude, bro.
in locals. So
Oh,
fan
all
says
hail the
expand the window
locals
of forward
diggers.
to remove the thumbnails. This is for the sound guy. You now owe him $1. That's not happening. Viola says tips for our favorite digger, Joe Sound Guy. Fan says why courts not do audio link transcripts to include tone as well. We live in modern age and our court's still living in 19th century because he doesn't want anyone to see this. That's what Engoran's feeling is. And he says, I bet their audio recording used to make the transcript. No, that's unlikely. That's unlikely. This is almost certainly from the court reporter who's sitting in the room. So
Now, Joe, you're a New York attorney, so you can answer this. Like, if you went in there and recorded this surreptitiously, if you had like some secret pocket recorder,
I'd have my license suspended.
Okay, so that's not going to happen.
Right. No one's doing it. No
until you're ready to go jump on a sword professionally. It's not
for no real upside. Yeah. It's suicidal. You're basically, as a New York attorney, going into a New York courtroom, flouting the court's authority where they have express rules all over the place that no one is supposed to be recording anything or transmitting anything directly from this room. For any New York attorney to do that, you'd be fast tracked. If they learn about it, you'll be fast tracked to having a suspended license or worse, and arguably could be held in contempt of court. You would be so wickedly punished for that, and properly so. I mean,
it makes sense. I mean,
it's a betrayal. It's a betrayal of your role as an officer of the court.
Totally. Now, let's go crazy. California attorney comes in to straighten out those crazy people in New York, and he surreptitiously disobeys the order from some faraway state. I picked California, but it could be anywhere.
It could be New Jersey. So the question is, so what they could, in theory, do is they could report it to the state bar that the person is from, and ask them to take action against them for ignoring the rules of the courts. It's unlikely they would go to that length, but that's definitely possible if they felt like they're a real betrayal. And the question also is whether you're subject to the jurisdiction of the courts when if I go to Iowa, I never set foot in Iowa, and there's a trial in Iowa that I go to and I start covering it, am I subject to the jurisdiction? And one could make a case that in order for you to be subject to a court in general, any rules or any law of the state, forget about a court, any law of this state, the court has to have personal jurisdiction over you. And the only way they can obtain personal jurisdiction is if you are deemed to have purposefully availed yourself of that jurisdiction. And you could purposefully avail yourself of something and be deemed to have purposely availed it in all respects or in limited respects. So you could, in theory, when you're driving cross country And if you get into an accident and you're driving, let's say from Florida to Washington to Oregon, and along the way you get into an accident in Kentucky. So you're deemed. So now the guy wants to sue you in Kentucky. You say, I have nothing to do with staying in Kentucky. Kentucky courts have nothing to do with me. So it's well established case law in America that the site of the accident is considered the best location and is the primary, and that you have purposefully availed yourself of the roads of Kentucky when you went through there. So for purposes of that accident, you could be sued. Now, let's say somebody is mad at you from the state of Kentucky. You got into an accident, someone's mad at you in the state of Kentucky, and they want to sue you in Kentucky. And you say, I'm not part of Kentucky. They're like, well, you got into an accident here and you were held into court for that. We want to hail you into court for this completely unrelated thing that you probably could not be held into court for, because it's not related to your use of the state of Kentucky. So similarly, if we, by extension, if we take that thought and we say, okay, now I'm going to Ohio to stream a trial from there. And so I have no ties to Ohio other than the 3 days I go in there to stream a trial. But for purposes of any wrongs I commit in streaming that trial, one could arguably say that they have limited jurisdiction over me because I've been purposefully availing myself of Ohio to the extent needed to stream the trial. So if the judge in Colorado, if I went to Colorado and was streaming from there, or if I'm theoretically using her stuff, now I'm more it's getting closer and closer toward me purposefully availing myself of that jurisdiction and subjecting myself to whatever rules govern that locale. That makes sense?
Yes.
It was a little.
What are my options here?
Yeah, okay.
All right. You must be so much fun at Thanksgiving.
Yes, I am. Yeah. So this is why Lady Lawgic never asked me a law question.
Uncle Joe, I got a fender bender, but it was like on the New Jersey Turnpike, but I just crossed the. Yeah, I can imagine.
Look, some people I'm sure got my meaning out of what I was saying there, but if you were too tired after reading so far 70 pages with me, I get that. I get that.
No, my wife came home.
Oh, nice.
She got off work. She came in, so I was able to hit mute and like go say, hi, honey, how are you? And she told me about her day, and I told her what I've been doing for the last 2 hours, and she told me, what happened at work and what happened at 7-Eleven. And then I came back and you were still talking.
She read to you War and Peace. And
then War and Peace. And I came back and you were still talking.
Like, Jesus, Joe. Jesus.
It's like, oh, mute. Hi, honey. Oh no, it's okay. He's still going.
No, it's fine. He's just blah, 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 blah.
Hopefully
actually, there's not a test on this later.
Well, I started this right because I kind of the thing you missed is, wow, this judge seems like a tyrant. Oh my gosh, how can he get away with that? Oh my gosh, is there any way to push back for anyone in the country, really, whether it's a local attorney like yourself or some citizen reporter somewhere else, to come in and push back against the crazy judge? In principle, right, we all want to rebel against the crazy judge. We want to push back and go, the judge is nuts. We can't let that judge do the nutty thing. But I think it's a worthy conversation to have, because we're not trying to burn the building down. We're trying to
up to the first department to punish him. Meaning, there's 4 departments. New York State is divided up into 4 departments, and the first department governs New York City and the Bronx. He's practicing. His court is in Manhattan, so he's part of the first department. The appellate division of the first department, Office of Court Administration, there could, in theory, there could be repercussions that would come from them. But
right. I'm just thinking about
the chances of that happening seem remote.
I'm just thinking about it from a layperson's point of view, because in this case, it's New York. It could be a crazy judge in Ohio tomorrow, or in Kansas, anywhere. When the crazy judge does those crazy judge things.
Yep.
How does the machine work to push back against the crazy judges?
It doesn't really work to push back on the crazy. It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. They're very well insulated. They're
Wow.
very.
And I guess to some degree that sort of makes sense
Mhm.
because you want them to have the latitude to make their decisions free of ridicule.
I guess. Good evening, everybody.
What has just happened? Oh my
Sorry,
gosh.
that was an echo here. I was going into my chat here because what I wanted to do was I wanted to put a link to my Trump trial place, my Trump trial, because I'm going to be shutting down Good Logic channel. I need to
you mean on YouTube?
on YouTube. I'm going to stay on YouTube. I'm going to stay on Rumble.
Right, but the YouTube Good Logic channel.
I want to um I want to motivate people to look at my other channel, which is Trump Trial, and I also need to ratchet up the hours for that in order to be eligible for monetization.
Well, the way we're reading this, they're going to have plenty of time.
Yeah, well, so that's why I'm definitely not going to make it all the way through this tonight. I mean, this is
cult follower number 6 just put a link in the chat.
Yeah, so I just put a link. Oh, it's called followers. I beat you. I beat you the punch and pinned it already. So
where do you think I got the link from?
Oh, okay. That's good. So you can't find it on the YouTube TV app. I'm not sure what to tell you, old drill sergeant, but I'll tell you that I did put it in the chat and it's also in the description. So I'm going to urge you guys, if you can check out over there, it looks like this over here. See, it's all happening here in Trump Trial, which right now there's 89 people watching, and I'm urging you guys to start switching over there because like in 5 minutes or so, I'm going to shut down over here and I'll be streaming on Rumble. I'm sticking on Rumble, and I'm going to be streaming on Rumble and Trump Trial, but I'm going to be shutting down on from YouTube. I'm going to be shutting down Good Logic, so you can keep watching me on YouTube, but the rest of this streams like 5 minutes from now. We'll work a little further in here. Give people a chance to and if you can, while you're there, if you can like and subscribe, I would be much obliged. Yeah,
I don't know what it is about your channel that keeps you under 100K, because you've been under 100K for, I don't know,
my whole life.
Oh, stop it.
Well, it's true.
For too long, you know, it does look artificial. It looks wrong.
When I pull up, when I went through the numbers and I pulled them up, I think I did it on Locals, where I went through my viewers up or down per day, and I had like a period of like 150 days in a row where I lost between 6 and 20 people every single day, which you lose it on one day, like 9 people. All right, it's 9 people out of like, tens of thousands. You don't really notice that. But when it happens every single day, first of all, it means you're not getting any growth no matter what. And new people are not finding their way here because YouTube doesn't put it into their recommended feeds no matter how many likes I get. And when it starts getting cumulative, when you start losing 15 people every single day, that's 400 people a day. So over a couple, you end up losing over a couple months, you lose 2,000, 3,000 subs, and you're basically going like nowhere. And that's
it's almost like YouTube knows that.
Yeah, it's struggle's been real.
I read a great book the other day, and one of the things I took from it was good decisions compound. Bad decisions compound. YouTube withholding your subscribers
compounds. Yep. Let's go a little further here before I shut down on Good Logic channel. All right. Sure. All right. Mr. Wallace, I would like to go back to the 2014 statements of financial condition. F it. Oh, sorry.
Wow.
F it. If I could
your nose got in the way.
Go to page 10 of 26. That's probably a typo. This is the heading for club facilities and related real estate. So when we scroll down, this is the listing from Mar-a-Lago. If you look, I'll read it to the record. It states, Mr. Trump acquired this property in 1985 and transferred ownership to a wholly owned limited liability company in 1995. It is now an exclusive private club which consists of 117 rooms. Formerly known as the Marjorie Merriweather Post Estate, it features a 20,000 square foot Louis the 14th style ballroom, world-class dining, tennis court, spa, cabanas, and guest cottages. I'm going to direct your attention to where it states as the property is an exclusive private club. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is it correct that the ownership of the club was transferred to a wholly owned limited liability company in 1995?
I guess so. If you represent, I would say yes.
Well, if I'm asking if you know whether or not the representation here, which is that it was transferred to a wholly owned limited liability company in 1995. Do you know if that's correct?
No, but it's probably so because I've done that with many properties over the years.
Is Mar-a-Lago today still wholly owned? Is the ownership of Mar-a-Lago today still underneath a wholly owned limited liability company?
I believe it's the same.
And there's no separate valuation for Mar-a-Lago on the statement of financial conditions in this century, correct?
You know, I have no mortgage on Mar-a-Lago, no debt. There is no debt. There was no reason to do it. So I don't know if they did it or not. But there is no debt, zero on Mar-a-Lago.
My question is just that the price of Mar-a-Lago, or I should say, estimated current value of Mar-a-Lago, is not listed here, is it?
No, it is not. It is not.
Okay, if we could pull up the supporting data for this statement of financial condition, Plaintiff's Exhibit 719. This is, I'll represent to you, the supporting spreadsheet for the 2014. Do I have this wrong? Okay, if we go down to row 189 and actually go down to the club facilities, sorry, 205. You see the entry is at 207 for Mar-a-Lago, and underneath that it says value if sold to an individual. That is referencing to selling the property to an individual as a residence. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Did you approve valuing Mar-a-Lago as if it could be sold to an individual as a residence?
I personally, well, I did approve it.
Did
On
I?
this,
Did I approve it?
well, did I approve it? On this, I don't know. There are two ways you can approve it: as a club or as a resident or as both. Now, wait a minute. For fuck's sake. There's two ways: the first, the second, and the third.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
all right. It's most valuable as both.
And here it is being valued as a residence, correct?
I guess so. What is the number?
We'll get to the number in a minute. I was just wondering, did you at some point discuss with Mr. McConney or Mr. Weisselberg valuing Mar-a-Lago as a private home?
I don't remember that. No.
If we go down to just go to the bottom, row 242. Do you see a value listed for Mar-a-Lago?
Yes.
Is $405,362,123 as of June 30th, 2014. Did you approve that valuation number?
No, but I believe it's a very low number.
So do you agree with that number?
No. It is much more valuable than that. Much. But we're bringing in an expert so that they will explain it to you what it's worth.
I'll ask you a question.
How much?
Believe as of today, Mar-a-Lago is worth at least 1.5 billion. Is that correct?
How much?
1.5 billion.
I think between $1 billion and $1.5 billion. Yes.
As of June 30, 2014, though, do you have a view as to how much Mar-a-Lago was worth at that time?
More than this. I don't know, but much more than this number.
Mr. Trump, we're going to hand you a copy of a document that's already in evidence. This has been stamped as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1013. This is a deed of development rights for Mar-a-Lago Club, and I'll direct you to it up on the screen. If you could just turn to page 2 of the document just quickly. Do you see your two signatures?
Yes.
There. Okay. If we go back to the first page under the third whereas clause, and I'll read it into the record for you to highlight it here. It states, whereas the club and Trump intend to forever extinguish their right to development or use the property for any purpose other than club use. Now, this, to explain to my audience here, there's a different valuation on property, whether it's a club or a residence. There are tax benefits. It's much, much lower taxes if it's a club. It's much more higher taxes if it's a residence. However, its market price as a private residence is considered much higher.
Is this the club with one resident? Or
That's where
club with one
we're coming
member?
to right now. That's where we're coming to right now. So what their issue is this. He's, in order to get the lower taxes, he signed off on it as it being a club, and then he intends to keep it as a club forever. And yet so that should be the lower valuation of the property. But when he applied for a loan, he listed it on a value based as a private residence, not as a club. So that's where they're saying is he's intentionally committing fraud. You're making a promise to the government that you're going to keep it as a club forever to benefit from lower taxes, and then you're going out and trying to use a valuation as a private residence because that'll help get you a better loan. So when you're going out to do that, despite promising the government that you're going to keep it as that you intend to keep it as a club forever, that's the fraud. And they think that this is a big, huge point for them to win on. So that's why they're going in on this here now. And the way Trump walks through this is brilliant, like freaking brilliant.
Now, what did his son say about his ability to do real estate?
When
He said his father's ability to do real estate was like beautiful or delicate, or he had
it's art.
Yeah.
It's
He
art.
was an art in real, and it's like, bro, I mean, it's like, he's your dad. I get it.
No, but
Inheritance.
this is where he displays brilliance as to how to control real estate in a way to maximize its value. So continuing here with Mr. Wallace asking questions. It states, whereas the club and Trump intend to forever extinguish their right to development or use the property for any purpose other than club use, was it in fact your intent to forever extinguish your right to use the property for any purpose other than club use?
Well, when you say intend doesn't mean we'll do it. That's number one. It says intend. I intend, but we have the right to change it back to a house. I intend I would always leave it as a club or a club and residence, which is really the best combination, which was what it is right now. It is a residence and it is a club, and a very successful club at that.
I take it your answer was that yes, you did intend to do this.
Yeah, I intend, but I also have the right, if I wanted to. There's no reason to do that, to switch it back.
Switching it back would be contrary to forever extinguishing something, though, wouldn't it?
No, it says to intend. It doesn't say that. It says to intend. It doesn't say I will. It says intend. But I don't mind leaving it as a club. In fact, if someone actually wanted, the smartest thing to do, because there are a lot of advantages to the club status, the smartest thing to do would be to have the club and have one member. And that would be the member that lives in the club. But it is much more valuable. And we will show that in 2 weeks or 5 weeks or 9 weeks or whenever this thing goes, that it is the most. It's the biggest value to be. Its biggest value is to be able to use it as the club and residentially simultaneously.
What he's saying here,
this is really like clever, super clever,
is brilliance. It's utter brilliance, and that's what he displays here. In fact, I'm gonna shut down over here on Good Logic, and because I've already expressed this brilliance on Good Logic before, but those of you who missed it, I mean, I'm going to be switching over now. The link is in the description. The link is in the description and in the chat for the Trump trial channel. I urge you to join us over there. I got a whole bunch of folks who are ready. How many are over there right now? How many over there? 142 watching there. I've got 726 watching. I don't even know whether that's combined or whatever, but yeah, so I'm going to urge you to join us over on Trump trial as I explain over there. This is what the channel looks like over there, and yeah, anyway, see, that's the delay that you're all seeing that thing slide around there. Anyhow, wow, this is so psychedelic. It's not going to look psychedelic when I get over there though. So okay, I'm shutting down. I'm still going strong on Rumble, and if you're on Rumble and you can hit like and subscribe there too, I'd appreciate that. But right now, I'm going to just shut down over here on Good Logic, and I'll be back on Good Logic, God willing, tomorrow evening. But so those of you on Good Logic, I say to you, and who are not going to be following me over, I say to you, why? Seriously, dude, why? And hit us over on Trump trial on speed.